Thank you very much, Ambassador, for seeing us today.
Thank you, Leah. It's good to be back, and thank you for this opportunity.
May I ask you about Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan this week? What are the repercussions of this trip?
I think the whole world is watched very closely U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. I think her trip has aroused strong indignation among the Chinese people and sharp criticism from the world community. Because we believe that her trip is a serious political provocation and is political show totally. And because it is seriously violates China's sovereignty, undermines the One China principle, and also jeopardizes the peace and the stability across the Taiwan Straits. That's why many people say it is reckless, dangerous, and also it's irresponsible. Because I think the key issue here is the One China principle. There is but one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government that represents the whole of China. That principle has been clearly recognized by the UN, by the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2758 in 1971. Indeed, after the founding of the People's Republic of China, there are 181 countries that have established diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China on the foundation of this One China principle. It always serves as the premises and foundations for China to conclude any bilateral relations with other countries. It also the centerpiece of the three China-U.S. communiques for China-U.S. to establish diplomatic relations. In 1979, the U.S. made a very clear promise that the government of the United States recognized the government of the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government representing the whole China.
Nancy Pelosi waslet it-Taiwan nhar it-tlieta din il-ġimgħa minkejja theddid miċ-Ċina dwar konsegwenzi serji għaż-żjara tagħha. Din kienet parti minn mawra fl-Asja b'waqfiet osra oħra f'Singapore, il-Malasja, il-Korea t'isfel u l-Ġappun. Nancy Pelosi hija l-ogħla uffiċjal Amerikan li żaret it-Taiwan f'dawn l-aħħar 25 sena. Hija ltaqat mal-President ta' Taiwan, żaret il-Parlament u ħallit il-Gżira f'24 siegħa.
Nancy Pelosi is the incumbent Speaker of the House, and he actually ranks second in the presidential line of succession. So her visit, in whatever format and whatever pretext, is a violation of the promise the U.S. has made, and it's a political provocation. So that's why China has to react forcefully to defend our national sovereignty and integrity. The whole world has watched this very closely, and I think they all understand the actions that we have taken. And they have many of the I think people have condemned her visit.
U issa sa naraw servizz ta' Net News b'aġġornament tas-sitwazzjoni.
Osservaturi internazzjonali huma mħassba ferm dwar is-sitwazzjoni perikoluża li żviluppat bejn iċ-Ċina u Taiwan, pajjiżi li ilhom ħafna żmien fi stat ta' animożità. Dan hekk kif il-militar ta' Beijing bħalissa jinsab għaddej bl-aktar eżerċizzji militari intensivi li bħalhom ilhom snin ma jsiru. It-tensjoni fl-aħħar sigħat irrankat fost l-isparar tal-missili ballistiċi mill-qawwiet taċ-Ċina li qed imexxu l-eżerċizzji fl-ibra viċin il-kosta tat-Taiwan mid-direzzjoni tal-Ilbiċ u l-Grigal. Dan fil-waqt li tmexxija f'Beijing għamlita ċara li bl-ebda mod mi se tittollera sitwazzjoni fejn it-Taiwan ikun rikonoxxut bħala stat sovran u indipendenti. L-eżerċizzi taċ-Ċina qed ikunu evalwati mill-potenzi tal-punent li huma anzjużi dwar il-possibilità li l-manuvri ta' Beijing magħrufin bħala live fire drills jeskalaw sal-punt fejn is-sitwazzjoni issir ikkontrollabbli. Uħud miż-żoni fejn qed isiru l-eżerċizzi jinsabu biss 19 kilometru l bogħod mit-territorju tat-Taiwan, meta l-eżerċizzi militari taċ-Ċiniżi huma l-eqreb li qatt saru ta' din il-gżira stat. Sa dan it-tant in-nies fit-Taiwan jinsabu fuq stat ta' allert assolut. Bit-tmexxija f'Taipei issostni li l-manuvri militari taċ-Ċina qed jammontaw għal stat ta' assedju fuq it-territorji tagħha. Dan meta l-eżerċizzi tal-qawwiet Ċiniżi mhumiex jippermettu li l-ajruplani u l-bastimenti jużaw l-ispazju tal-ajru fil-limiti tat-Taiwan. L-iżviluppi qed isegwu żjara kontroversjali tal-Speaker tal-Kamra Amerikana tar-Rappreżentanti Nancy Pelosi fit-Taiwan.
Before her visit, I think Chinese government has approached to the U.S. government in different levels. We have repeatedly, raised our strong opposition and our strong position on this issue. We have clearly told them the serious consequences that is going to brought up. Because we believe that one China policy is really the guardrail for China and the U.S. relations to develop healthily. Actually, during the telephone conversation between President Xi Jinping and President Biden confirmed that the U.S. stick to the one China policy, that the U.S. does not support the independent forces in Taiwan. But this is clearly, they are saying something, but they are doing another.
Today, our delegation, of which I'm very proud, came to Taiwan to make unequivocally clear we will not abandon our commitment to Taiwan, and we are proud of our enduring friendship.
I think this is going to have a very serious damage for the China-U.S. relations.
Mm-hmm. What was the reaction globally? I mean, we've all heard things on the news, but could you talk us through it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the global reaction, I think we have seen it. There are a lot of condemnation of the trip. There are many leaders, particularly in African countries, in Asia countries, they believe that the trip by Nancy Pelosi is a trample of the international norms, which is the one China policy, and that the U.S. Act in bad faith because they broke their own promises on the one China policy. I think I read an article in the New York Times by the columnist Thomas Friedman, and he mentioned that the trip by Nancy Pelosi is a very reckless, dangerous, and irresponsible one. I think that's more or less represents the voices in the international society. Actually, I think the voice here in Malta, I have learned that there are also a lot of objections to that because it has always been a cornerstone in our bilateral relations that Malta government has always adhered to the one China policy since the establishment of our diplomatic relations 50 years ago. Actually, Taiwan issue has never been an issue between China and Malta, and we always understand each other. In multilateral arenas, we always appreciate the strong support of Malta in international arenas. Malta government has always adhere to the one China policy very strictly, and we really appreciate that.
And now more than ever, America's solidarity with Taiwan is crucial, and that is the message we are bringing here today.
What, in your opinion, is the reaction of the Chinese people living here in Malta?
I think that's a good question. I certainly couldn't speak on behalf of the Chinese communities here, but I could tell you that the reunification of China, that is Taiwan's return to mainland China, is the particular strong will of the 1.4 billion Chinese people, and I believe that includes all those overseas Chinese. Because for China, the Taiwan issue has been always at the core of the Chinese core interest. All those Chinese people in the mainland or overseas, I think this is a common aspiration for all the Chinese people to have an early reunification of our country. Because among the P5 countries, actually, China is the only one that still remain separated. But that's because of the historical reasons. But we believe that there is no force that is going to hinder the reunification across the Taiwan Strait, because that eventually Taiwan is going to return back to China.
There is criticism that China is changing the status quo across the Taiwan Strait, and that it is China that is escalating tensions there. What are your comments, Ambassador?
Well, actually, that's just on the opposite, because recently, of course, we have seen tensions and challenges across the Taiwan Strait, but it is the repeated movements by the Taiwan Authority and also the United States. The Taiwan Authority stick to the Taiwan independence, and they try to seek the support of the U.S. for their independent agenda. And they rejected the 1992 consensus, which the two sides across the Taiwan Strait realized that there is only but one China, and the two sides belong to one China. But since the DPP, the Tsai Ing-wen Authority took the office, and they rejected this, so they seek Taiwan independence incrementally, and also they try to seek the support from the U.S. government. I think that's why they broke the very much basis for the cross Taiwan relations. And on the U.S. part, actually, the U.S. tried to play the Taiwan card, and they tried to use Taiwan as an unsinkable aircraft carrier to contain China. So they said they committed to the one China policy, but in practice, they tried to obscure, hollow, and to abandon actually the one China policy. I think that is actually the real cause, for the instability across the Taiwan Strait. And we have seen this very clearly through the recent trip by U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi. This is a political show, and this is a political provocation and also a serious violation of the one China policy the U.S. has made.
What has this done to U.S.-China relations, and how do you think it will recover from this?
Well, I think the key stabilizing force for the stability and peace across the Taiwan Strait is the one China policy. So we urge the Taiwan Authority to come back to the 1992 consensus, and the core of it is one China. And also we request the U.S. government to come back to the one China policy, to honor its commitment for the one China policy, to honor the promises made by President Biden that the U.S. is not or does not support the Taiwan independence. I think that's the real guardrails for China-U.S. relations to move forward.
Your previous posting was in the U.S. From a personal perspective, how do you think this is going to work out?
Well, I was in the United States, in the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. for 6 years. And, I think for China-U.S. relations, it has always been a very complicated, consequential, and important one. And I think the idea is, of course, China and the U.S., we are different in terms of history, culture, and political system. On the other hand, we need to agree to our disagreement, and we need to work together because there are so many issues that couldn't be resolved without the cooperation between China and the U.S. We need to respect each other. We need to treat each other on an equal basis, and we need to engage in win-win cooperation. I think that has been the positions of China's positions all along. But on the other hand, if there is any actions, try to violate China's sovereignty, integrity, and our national interest, certainly we will not sit idle. We will fight back. But I believe that for China-U.S., we need to, always respect each other in order to, I think that's not only good for the two countries, for the two peoples, but for the world at large. because no people would like to see the two countries slide into a Cold War. And for China, we would like to maintain friendly relations with each and all the countries all over the world. But the precondition is the U.S. needs to respect China's self-chosen path of development, China's system, and we need to respect each other's core interest. So Taiwan issue has always lies in the core interest of China. And I think for U.S. they need to come back to the one China policy.
Dik kienet intervista mal-Eċċellenza Yu Dunhai li huwa l-ambaxxatur ta' Ċina ġo Malta dwar iż-żjara ta' Nancy Pelosi ġo Taiwan. Jekk għandkom xi kummenti, ibatuhom pas-soltu fuq in-numru li jidher fuq l-iskrin permezz tal-WhatsApp. Jiena Leja Hogg għal Net TV sa ngħaddu għal waqfa qasira u sa narakom wara r-riklami.